My name is Matthew Willard. Currently, I'm a state representative, and I'm running for City Council Member at Large, Division 1. So for the last 6 years, I've proudly represented the city of New Orleans, and I've been focused on solving the problems that actually exist in our city. The last 2 years, I've been the chairperson of the House Democratic Caucus. I brought an end to estimated water bills by Sewage and Water Board, passed only legislation to guarantee premium reductions for Louisiana citizens if they put a fortified roof on their property. I've worked with the city. I've worked with NOPD to help alleviate their staffing crisis. I'm a lifelong New Orleanian, born and raised in Gentilly, and it is way too difficult and way too expensive to call the city of New Orleans home right now. And I think we need to focus on the basics. Better streets, better sidewalks, fixing our street lights, repairing our red lights, making sure that we have robust educational and recreational opportunities for our youth. And I'm prepared to take my dedication, my track record of success, and my leadership capabilities into City Hall to make sure that City Hall actually works for the people who call New Orleans home 24/7.
What do you think is the number one issue facing New Orleans, and how can the city council meaningfully address that issue?
Yeah, I think the number one issue is going to be related to infrastructure and city services. Right now, people in the city of New Orleans feel like when they send an email to a department or when they call 311 to get a code enforcement ticket, it goes into a black hole. They feel like the city hall is not responsive to their needs. And it starts everywhere from, why do we still only have once a week trash pickup, but we never received a reduction on our bills? Why does it take a year for my pothole to be replaced? Why does this storm grate in my street still not have a cover for it, right? We have to turn those things around, and we have to make sure that the city's budget is actually going where the need is the greatest. And to me, the need is the greatest on drainage. So we have to figure out how we fund drainage in the city of New Orleans long term. For me, the need is the greatest on our roads, but also on our sidewalks. We have way too many senior citizens who fall and have accidents because our sidewalks are in total disrepair. We have way too many streetlights out in the city of New Orleans. And so one thing that we can do to immediately change the narrative and show progress is to actually bring more jobs directly under City Hall instead of contracting out all of the work. We shouldn't have one crew replacing potholes and fixing potholes in the city of New Orleans. We should have more than one crew repairing streetlights in the city of New Orleans. Not only will you have greater accountability and transparency when you bring some of that work under City Hall, but you can also have cost savings that would be realized when you don't have to contract out all of the work, and those contracts don't have to go over budget or have change orders happening all the time.
New Orleans residents have a lot of complaints about utilities, from rising bills to frequent outages. How will you approach regulating energy and Delta Utilities, the city's new gas company?
Yeah, so first of all, what I would say is I embrace the opportunity to be a regulator of our city's utilities. Second thing that I would say is the city council has to put its foot down on rate increases. Right now, what we're seeing is a grid that's not reliable. The redundancy isn't there. And to ask the people of New Orleans to continue paying the bill is unacceptable. Right now, there is a docket in front of the council that would enable the creation of a neighborhood power plant that ties into the community solar project. And I really think since we do have that direct regulatory authority as a council, that we should be leading the country on innovative ways to power our homes and power our businesses and our utilities. And so one thing that I would like for us to do is see that neighborhood power plant, the virtual power plant, into fruition so that the people in the city of New Orleans can actually generate their own power, and consolidated billing which would allow people who participate in the neighborhood power plant to actually realize savings on the back end. But even a step further, what you would see is that when you put that plan into action, you'll have cost savings across the city, because as opposed to us having to buy power from the grid when we're at peak demand times, we could use the solar power that's been generated and stored in batteries to actually alleviate that peak grid demand and allow the people in New Orleans to use their own power that they're generating. Also, there's an issue with the advisors the council has for the utility committee. And when it goes to the process for those consultants, that has to be a competitive bid process. And we have to encourage other companies to bid for that advisory position for the city council's utility committee. And we also have to improve public awareness and public knowledge of how the city's utility committee actually operates. Make sure that people throughout New Orleans understand the docket process, understand how they can intervene in a docket, and how they can actually participate and have their voices heard when it comes to utility decisions.
Our water utility is also a source of frequent complaints, particularly when it relates to drainage.
Yep.
Does the city need a stormwater fee to pay for drainage infrastructure? Why or why not?
You know, what I would say is, first of all, I passed the bill to put an end to the estimated billing practices by Sewage and Water Board, which I believe is a big step in the right direction. Long term, we have to figure out how we fund drainage in the city of New Orleans. Otherwise, we won't be able to call it home for the next 10, 20 years. I totally think that we have to get all properties in the city of New Orleans contributing to drainage funding. Right now, I believe more than half of the properties in the city of New Orleans are not taxable, and it's just not sustainable, because if that continues on the way it is, we'll continue trying to squeeze a dollar out of a penny from the people of New Orleans, and they're fed up with it, and they're voting with their feet. And we're seeing that through a 4,000 to 5,000 population loss every year. I mean, for the last few years, 4,000 to 5,000 people have been leaving the city of New Orleans. So long term, whether you call it a drainage fee, whether you call it an infrastructure fee, I think part of the solution has to include some type of mechanism where the properties that are not on the tax rolls, which also means that they're not contributing to the millages that go toward drainage operations in the city of New Orleans, those properties actually need to contribute to drainage operations in the city of New Orleans if we really want to get serious about how we fund drainage long term in our city.
We may be dealing with a very different fiscal reality in the coming years.
Yeah.
There's no longer an influx of American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Federal funding for certain public health, climate resiliency, and disaster recovery projects is no longer guaranteed. Still, the City Council will steward a budget of well over $1 billion. How should the council decide what to prioritize in that budget?
For me, I think it's really, you start off with the basics. So we have to take care of our streets, and right now there's a $500 million bond proposition that the City Council pushed forward to help with some road work and drainage projects in the city of New Orleans. Voters will have to approve that, but we have to get serious about what is really important in the city of New Orleans. Everybody is tired of the status of our roads. So we need to make sure that we're putting money into redoing roads in the city. We need to make sure that we're putting money into redoing sidewalks in the city of New Orleans. We need to make sure that we're putting money into replacing street lights in the city of New Orleans. Same thing with red lights in the city of New Orleans. Our youth are not only our future, but they're our present. So we need to make sure that our budget reflects good, robust opportunities for our youth, both inside and outside of the classroom, to help put them on a position to where they can succeed in life. So you have to start off with those issues, and you have to make sure that departments are not only receiving the funding that they need to do the job that the people of New Orleans deserve, but we also have to make sure that they are good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So you need that accountability and transparency as it relates to the city's budget process, meaning that we have to hit the road and we have to do town halls all throughout the city, and we have to let the people in New Orleans know these are our priorities based on input that we're receiving from every part of the city. Let us know if this aligns with your priorities. And then we have to figure out how to do more with less. I really believe that we can realize cost savings if we stop contracting out all of the work that we do in the city of New Orleans and bring some of those positions underneath City Hall. And also there's cost savings to be realized when we start working on infrastructure projects to make sure that when we do it right the first time and that we do it on time. So you don't have those overages that result when people say, I need a change order or whatever the process may be. And we have to make sure that we pay any contractors doing work for the city of New Orleans so that we have a better competitive bid process for those projects.
A huge part of the council agenda every meeting is land use and zoning.
Yeah.
How will you approach those decisions? What considerations do you think should be prioritized? And how should affordability factor into those decisions?
Yeah. So as it relates to land use and zoning, historically, that has sort of been championed by each district council member if it's a project in their district. One way that I actually want to approach this council at large position differently is I really want to represent the entire city, and I want to be boots on the ground in every neighborhood that we have across the city of New Orleans. So as it relates to maybe contentious zoning issues that come before the city council, I want to sit down with the neighborhood groups, the neighborhood leaders, the residents that will be directly impacted by any potential zoning changes. I want to sit down with the developers of the projects because I want to hear both sides to the story. And I want to make sure that I can have and make an informed decision as a vote on the city council and not necessarily just defer to the district council members' recommendation on that project. As it relates to affordability in the city of New Orleans, we have to some degree, get beyond the not in my backyard opposition that comes about as it relates to affordable housing developments in the city. But the first thing that I want to do on the affordability side as it relates to housing and rent and home ownership is clean up the blight and the vacant properties that we have riddled throughout the city of New Orleans. Right now we're in the lower 9, and there are so many properties here that just need to be developed and put back into commerce. And when you can take those blighted properties and those vacant properties and structure it in a way that it either has to be rented out or sold to someone at an affordable level, you're actually accomplishing two things. You're increasing the affordable housing stock, but you're also eradicating blight and vacant properties that we have in the city of New Orleans.
What do you think is something that an average voter might misunderstand about the city council, or what do you wish voters knew about the job?
So I think a lot of voters misunderstand the disconnect of the legislative branch at the state level, the legislative branch in the city, the parish level. The big thing to understand is that for the city council, that is the legislative branch for the city of New Orleans. There are 5 district council members who are your direct council member. Then you have 2 at-large members who are elected to represent the entire city of New Orleans. They're represented by they're voted in by each and every member in the city of New Orleans. As the legislative branch, they're responsible for managing the budget. They're responsible for managing the city's debt, and they're responsible for policy solutions. So the mayor can roll out an initiative, but without a city council member to actually carry it as an ordinance or even a change to the city's charter, it can't happen. And so in an ideal environment, you want the mayor, the executive branch of the city of New Orleans, to have a good working relationship with the city council so that collaboratively they can work together on solving the issues that we face as everyday New Orleanians.
What is something surprising that most voters wouldn't know about you?
So first, I'll go with this one. I'm 36 years old. I say that because I've encountered a lot of voters who say I look younger in person, and they think I'm in my 20s. So I'm 36 years old. I've been in the state legislature for 6 years. I've passed 36 bills. I'm a marketing director for a technology company Those are some things that I think people in the city of New Orleans may not know about me. And for the last 2 years, I've actually been the chairperson of the House Democratic Caucus, the youngest one that we've ever had in our state's history, and the first one from the city of New Orleans.
What's it like working in the state house where there are so many Republicans compared to the Democratic Party?
So it makes you, if you want to be successful, it makes you operate in a very strategic way. And the way I have been able to approach things in Baton Rouge have enabled me to enjoy pretty good success up there. I will vehemently debate and oppose legislation that I think has no place to be in the state of Louisiana, but I'll do it in a respectful manner to where even the person whom I beat up and tear up on the House floor during the debate will come up to me after and shake my hand and say, "Thank you for the good debate. You were very respectful." One of the first things I did in Baton Rouge to establish better relationships, not only with my Republican colleagues, but with my colleagues that represent rural parts of Louisiana, North Louisiana, Central Louisiana, is create the STEM Innovation Caucus. So I'm the founder and chairperson of the STEM Innovation Caucus, and our focus has been on economic diversification, creating new jobs in the state of Louisiana, and positioning our small business owners and our entrepreneurs and our innovators to actually succeed and stay in the state of Louisiana. A lot of people talk about efforts like that. Not many people had policy ideas behind it. And so with the creation of that caucus, I was able to build really good relationships with colleagues whom I may disagree with on 50% of the issues, but around economic diversification and creating job opportunities for our high school and college students, we were able to bond and connect over and establish a good working relationship.
You've been a state legislator for 6 years. In that time, you focused on issues that arguably can best be tackled at the state level, from rising auto and home insurance premiums to expanding funding for a fortified roof program. What do you think the city council can accomplish that the state legislature can't? And how will you navigate state preemption laws that limit the city's authority on certain matters?
Yeah, so we have to work within those preemption laws. Many of them have been on the books for several years. The thing that the council can accomplish that the state legislature cannot accomplish is improving the quality of life for people who call New Orleans home. Everything from picking up the trash to replacing the street lights to fixing our roads, repairing our sidewalks, making sure that our NORD facilities in the city of New Orleans are first class in every part of the city of New Orleans. That's where I believe the council should focus its efforts, because really you want a legislative branch for local government to improve your quality of life, and that should be the target. You always want to be improving satisfaction and quality of life for the people whom you represent. The state legislature focuses on those big issues as it relates to home ownership, as it relates to property taxes, as it relates to insurance, as it relates to educational policy and curriculum. The city government, City Hall focuses on those quality of life issues, but there are some innovative things that we can do to help make the work that the legislature does magnify. One thing that I would like to explore is to see if there's a way we can structure a program that's tied to the Fortified Roof Grant Program, which I made permanent through legislation. A lot of people who receive that $10,000 grant still can't afford the gap to put a new fortified roof on their property. And in some cases, you're talking about $2,000 to $3,000 out of pocket and able to obtain $10,000 for a brand new roof. I think it would be a wise use of city resources to create a fund to where we can help people come up with that $2,000 to $3,000 gap in order for them to get $10,000 to put a brand new fortified roof on their property.
Why should you be elected over fellow Democrat and state legislator Delisha Boyd? And also, why should you be elected over Matt Hill?
So for me, I think it goes to accountability. I think it goes to transparency, and I think it goes to leadership. I firmly believe that I'm the best candidate in this race for council member at large Division I by far. I've been in the legislature for 6 years, working in a hostile environment for most Democrats, especially Democrats coming out of the city of New Orleans. And I've been able to succeed not only in passing legislation and creating laws, but also in bringing home the bacon for the city of New Orleans, bringing home more than $10 million for the city of New Orleans and various entities that operate in the city of New Orleans. We need energetic leadership on city council. We need visionary, bold leadership on city council. We need leaders who can be trustworthy and who will be accountable and representative to the people of the city of New Orleans. That's how I am. As a state representative, I go to all my neighborhood association meetings. When constitutional amendments come up on the ballot, I make it my job to go throughout the city of New Orleans and talk to people about what a yes vote means and what a no vote means. Not necessarily telling them to vote yes or no, making sure that they're informed of how one vote would impact this constitutional amendment in this ballot proposition. So I really believe that if we want the city to succeed and move to the next level and kind of close the chapter on these last few rough, dark years in our city's history, then Willard is the best candidate for this at-large race for Division 1.